Hey, it's Saturday, January 21st, 2023. I think this is our first podcast of 2023. Is that right, Griff? I think it is. Yes? Yeah, good job, Griff. He had to get up early and shoot some doc this morning. So today I have a lovely guest, Lee Murphy, and just her this time. Last time it was you and your daughter, correct?
That's correct.
All right, so I'm going to drill you today. She's the professional sports nutritionist, and she teaches at UT, and she's very active. She lives in my subdivision, never stops moving. So I always feel guilty. I'm in different cars trying to wave to you. Sometimes you're locked in on whatever conversation. So I want to open up. We have a lot of people that don't get the nutrition part of it. And my big thing that I try to stress to the athletes, the ones that live with me, it's kind of easier for them, body composition. So can you define what I'm trying to get across with body composition?
Right, in terms of lean mass and fat mass, basically it comes down to that.
So we all think, I'm going to just hit you, they all think to be fast in the 40, say NFL Combine, that's where we are right now in the season of Combine prep and getting fast for 40 and jumping high for verticals, all this stuff. So everybody thinks, not everybody, but people, the mass majority think, to get faster, let's drop weight. That's not necessarily true. And my big thing is let's drop body fat and we'll get faster, not about body weight, because most of the time you're going to lose muscle mass. And dealing with the different genres I have in here of different athletes, ages, it's all different, correct?
Absolutely.
All right, so open up with body fat composition.
In terms of what that is or what the recommendations are?
Well, with the questions that we had from one of my guys in here, Marlo, that has been training with me for years, and he could lose weight better than anybody in the gym. Okay, He could lose weight. He could be a prisoner of war and, suck on some styrofoam and a cup of air and lose weight for the day. But his numbers go down, injuries go up, he looks peaked, he actually doesn't look healthy, and it's actually not an enjoyable lifestyle, is what I see.
You get moody.
He sends me his pictures and I'm like, yuck. Because I love food. I'm an Italian guy. So if I wasn't in this business, I'd probably be 400 pounds because I love eating. It's a stress food, but it's a feel good. I love cooking. I love being in the kitchen. But I also understand what food does. And I know you do even in more depth than I do. So let's troubleshoot that because his questions were empty nester. We eat out a lot. Excuse. Jocko Willick. It's all excuse. I'm an empty nester and I don't eat out at all. Like I said, 1 out of 14 days. His age, 62. Things change. Metabolic rate changes. Got it. What was his other eating out? What was his other questions? I think those were the two big ones, right?
Right.
Okay.
And I think, I always tell my clients to be careful about looking at the number on the scale for that reason, because years ago, I worked at the health department and, with different populations and with any population, everybody doesn't have a scale in their bathroom for different reasons, but you don't always have to go by that number because it can mess with your head in weight loss and weight gain. But, this is a silly thing that some might scoff at, but look, the way your clothes feel are honestly a better gauge of body composition as much as the number on your scale, because if you're waist circumference is increasing, or even if your pounds are staying the same. This is a different analogy, but when a woman becomes pregnant, the number might not change so much on the scale, but things are really changing in terms of the way she looks and the way the body fat's changing because of the hormones related to that. And in a different way, when you age, certainly your body fat, your basal metabolic rate is dropping with each decade, a couple of percentage. That just happens. But you combat that by either changing your diet with different composition, macros or otherwise, and you also change the way you have output or exercise. And you have to do that in order to combat that. I always tell my college students that if you had exactly the same habits today as you would 30 years from now, you would probably gain weight for the sake of the basal metabolic rate, dropping. But you combat that by changing your diet, changing your output, and making your lifestyle different, because you have to if you want to maintain the weight.
Okay. Yeah. So wouldn't you say, and I talk with, let's go Marlo again, my businessman, that, he's a soldier. He gets in and gets it done. But I'm like, listen, if you don't understand stress and cortisol levels, you're screwed. So you got to figure out that we're going to everybody on the Instagram, like, cut out stress. We can't cut out stress, but we sure as hell can manage it. So I think that would be a huge indicator in proper sleep.
That's right.
And the cat eats out, and he doesn't see this, so he probably has to hear it on this podcast. Eats out average 5 days a week. He's not in bed by 9 or 10. It's 10:30 to 11:30, because he has all the sleep monitors that everybody has now. I got this, I got that, and I'm not a big gadget guy. You know, I went through like heart rates and doing that with all the motocross guys years ago. But after that, it's like, do you feel good when you wake up?
Right.
Do you feel recovered?
Right.
Do you feel like you got good sleep? Because I think we're taking away the intuitiveness of the feel of stuff. Now, again, you know, we keep it a little bit more simple, and we get crazy results because of that instead of overcomplicating it. So I think if Marlo had to do a check, it would be a self-check of, do I get enough sleep? Am I managing my stress? Am I eating enough calories? Because I'm telling you, Lee, till I'm blue in the face, the guy could cut calories like nobody's business and go in that calorie deficit, but it's not healthy because, as you see on the chart, his body fat goes up. So I would take a guy at 240 at 30% instead of a guy 205 at 30%. He just has more fat.
Right.
Okay, so how would, if Dave Marlowe's your guy, okay, Dave, you're getting free advice now. So listen in. If he's your guy, you're sitting him down. He just told you all those things. Okay, I'd probably have to be there with him to make sure he keeps it real. Okay, so the number one thing was you have to manage your eating out.
Right.
Because what is eating out? What food is that?
Well, first I want to go back to what you said about those 3 foundations. I was listening to a PhD talk about this the other day in exercise physiology, that, you know, recovery, the discussion was about recovery, and specifically sports recovery, exercise recovery, and recovering for, training. But the foundations of that, and really you could look at this in terms of all walks of life, are adequate sleep, a foundation of nutrition, and having some, the discussion that was mental rest, but what you're saying, kind of the same idea, whether that's stress. Some people are going to manage that through, prayer and spirituality. Some are going to manage that through meditation, whatever, or just having blank space in your brain to just chill out and have that. Those things are all important and need to be the foundation of whatever you deal with, because nutrition is super, super important. But when you're younger, you can more easily obviously alter your weight by changing your diet a little bit or exercising a little bit more. Or if you do both, it's even more impressive in your outcome. But as we age, of course, that does change in lots of ways, and the little things make a bigger difference. And to your question about eating out, there's always a better choice in eating out. When you have a menu to choose from, there's always something that could be healthier, in quotes. But what you don't see is, like you discussed, the sodium and
the butter on the grill, the oils on the grill. Are they using, avocado oils? I doubt it.
Exactly.
More packaged.
Sure.
Okay, so I think we're getting the gist of that. Do you think, you guys listening, okay, cool. Okay, so he's got one more. I think I checked off the age and all that jazz, and the empty nester eating out. Many clients want to lower body fat there. So, okay, the one that he says, what's your opinion on intermittent fasting?
That's kind of a heavy one because people define intermittent fasting so differently. There's so many different levels. And even if you Google it, there's like several different major ones that people choose from. And even some people define it, back in the day before it became popular again, as, 12 to 16 hours of fasting. And if that was the case, we'd all be intermittent fasting, because most people don't eat during bedtime hours, right? And obviously that's not the case. If that was intermittent fasting results, we'd all be exactly the weight and size we wanted to be, and that's not the case. What I don't like about intermittent fasting is that it doesn't train you to eat healthy foods necessarily. And a lot of people have the mentality, well, this is great.
Great point.
I can eat whatever I want during this time.
Because they sell that.
Right. Yeah. because you can have all these calories during these few hours that you can eat. But that's not helping anything in my standpoint as a nutritionist. It's not helping your, focus on unsaturated fats, fruits and vegetables, lean proteins, the things that we push as nutritionists as being the best foods to choose are not even in the picture. You just it's time. And there's that. And then for athletes, it's just never a good idea because you need continual energy, and it's a terrible idea in terms of your performance. And the research is limitless in terms of what carbohydrates and performance, and protein and recovery, and carbohydrates and recovery, and all of that is factual science. And so that is not a good idea for intermittent fasting. And then if you have diabetes or other health conditions, that's not a good idea. Or if you have a history of eating disorders, that's not a good idea for intermittent fasting. So there's a lot of boxes to check that exclude that. But I will say I do know a few people that it's worked for. Very, very few that
but
do it long term.
Can you stay on it?
Right, exactly. That's the thing.
Isn't that I was going to ask you my own questions about keto and the paleo diets and all that. Joe Rogan's on there now saying, I always shout out on Joe Rogan, don't I? It's all I eat is meat.
Right. I as a nutritionist, my principles, like I already just said, fruits and vegetables, I push those all day long, lean proteins, unsaturated fats.
So you like the pyramid, carbs, protein, fats.
Like we learned in elementary school. The science and the factual data is pushed on that. Now, granted, a lot of people can do well on lower carb or on, this or that, but it's not a blanket for everyone. Everybody, in my opinion, could use significant sources of fruits and vegetables and lean protein, unsaturated fats. That's just a great idea for everybody. And you have these things that are, the high protein, very low carb, high protein that some people find success on, but they're not going to stick to it. And so what I try to preach is what we can do long term and sustain that. And generally, that is what is, preached in terms of what I just discussed. And so some of the ones that are out there, used to be Atkins back in the day.
Oh, it's still the South Beach diet.
Right.
I tried that thing in 99. Well, how can you not lose weight? You got to cut out caffeine, which that's my biggest vice. Alcohol and sugars.
There you go. Right. With this, and
I couldn't perform. I could barely walk.
Right. And then sometimes people see success, they go on this diet for a short period of time and they're like, hey, guess what? My cholesterol dropped, my weight dropped, my blood pressure dropped. But that's purely because you lost pounds. That's not because you're on some crazy diet. Your body's not responding positively to some crazy, macronutrient composition. It's that is a response to weight loss and a positive response from your body. It's not because you did some fad diet. But what I like to kind of promote is things that you can continuously do the rest of your life.
Lifestyle.
Right.
Yeah.
And these ones that are, anybody could do super low carb for a short period of time. But then when you get back on the carb train, you need to for energy and to work out, it's going to come right back up. Right.
Hello, Dave. Yeah. Dave's famous for that because he could go 265 and 220 in a matter of 6 or 8 weeks and then yo-yo right back up. And it's about the lifestyle. Also, I wanted to ask your opinion because I do this with my athletes is weights and measurables. So I tell all the good guys of scales of if you really want to dial in a body composition, start weighing your food and you know exactly what you're putting in your body for breakfast, lunch, dinner, just like a car.
Right.
Just like dogs when you measure out their
Sure.
And they do not get fatter unless you feed them table scraps, which I'm guilty of doing. But if you don't, how can you get fat if you're putting the same thing in?
Right. And when I teach food label reading, the very first thing, do you know what the first thing when you're reading a nutrition food label, can I ask you, what would you say is the first thing you look at when you look at a food label? We could have a whole podcast on food label reading.
Wow, we could. We could. I look at sodium.
That's good. Everybody, and I ask my class, some people say carbs, some people say
sugars,
calories, sugars, right? Dietary fiber, which we haven't talked about. That's one of my soapboxes that I talk a lot about. But actually, across the board, everybody and their mother needs to look at serving size first. Because to your point, that's what the whole label is based on. So if it's, I always talk about cereal because cereal serving sizes are all over the place. Some are like a quarter cup, some are a cup and a half, depending on what cereal you're talking about. And some are more dense or some are, Rice Krispies is just white rice puffed with air, right? So it's like over a cup. And then grape nuts are very dense. So they're like much smaller.
Yes. Grape nuts are the move. You don't see people eating those anymore. But when I was training fitness people like that for their competitions, grape nuts and banana. And at first you feel swollen and bloated. I'm like, just hang on.
And energy's coming.
Yep, right.
But serving size is so important because that's what the whole label is based on. So, and I'm not saying you have to eat what the serving size is because you might be a person that needs more calories and you need to eat more than that. But you need to know so that you know what you're getting. So to your point about measuring weight in food, you don't have to do that every time you eat. But once you have a gauge of it, that's what you need. So if you have a cereal bowl, if you have the same cereal bowl you use every morning, what does a cup look like in there? And so just having an idea, what does 2 cups look like? Because you might need to use your math and multiply times 2 for the food label or divide by 2, depending on what you're consuming. So it's, I always use the example back, they've changed the food labels over time, but they used to say that one of the screw top Coke bottles, or Diet Coke, that has the, that you get out of a vending machine or whatever, that you'd look at it and say around 100 calories and be like, okay, but there was 2.5 servings in one of those bottles back in the old label. And you're like, who's going to share that with 2.5 friends, of like the 1 serving Coke bottle, right? And so now they've changed that a little bit. But point being, that is important because you might look at that and be like, oh, it's just 100 calories. Well, it's actually 250 plus calories. So it's important to, and the other factors of the nutrient label also. So that's all important to kind of
that is cool. Then I like that point. Okay, I want to get into, like you just said, dietary fiber.
Yes.
And then I also want to get into alcohol because that's another thing that people are really, let's use Diamond Dave again. Like if he's having 1 or 2 beers a night, that adds up. And maybe it's even more of that on the weekends or, we just got out of college football season and, we allow for that. So dietary fiber is huge.
Yeah. So I always tell my students if there's no magic bullet in the world of nutrition, but if there was, in my opinion, it would be dietary fiber because the vast amount of benefits that it has for you. First of all, foods that are naturally high in dietary fiber are just good choices. For instance, whole grains, fruits, vegetables, that's where dietary fiber is. So every food that has that is a good choice for the most part. And some of them have it added to it. But for the most part, those that naturally have dietary fiber are nutritionally sound, nutrient-dense sources. And then the nutritional benefits beyond, yes, it keeps you fuller longer. So, it fills you up, which is good for weight maintenance. But it also, we all know the story about dietary fiber and digestion and keeps us regular, right? The roughage, that is certainly great for even for your digestive tract, but also for your flora and your gut. That's a whole nother podcast, right? And then your microbiome and keeping that healthy. And then your cancer risk, like colon cancer risk, is decreased as well as other for dietary fiber. And then you have also the benefits of cholesterol. Have you seen the commercials where even like the Honey Nut Cheerios commercials or oatmeal commercials where I lost
with iced tea on them.
Yes.
Yeah. He's the yoga instructor.
Spin. Yeah. He's, they're like, I lost so many points on my cholesterol from eating Cheerios. Well, it's not the Cheerios, it's the dietary fiber that's doing the magic. So that any cereal or whatever that has dietary fiber, it binds the cholesterol in a crude way and lets it to, release from the body. And so that is helpful. And then blood sugars and diabetes, it helps to curb that. Anyway, I could go on and on, but it's countless benefits for dietary fiber. And so
are you a fan of sugar? I think I'm a fan of a certain amount of sugar, depending on the athlete and their needs when they come live with me. But, there's sugar is evil. We hear a lot of all that, but is it simple sugars or complex?
Sugar is so hard. If you don't mind, let me go back to say, just to give a concrete recommendation. So for dietary fiber, so I'm just talking about that so people know what that means. The recommendation is 25 to 38 grams per day. I think it should be even, pushed more than that to some degree. You can get too much. Now, let me just back up and say, I think I mentioned this last time, but variety, balance, and moderation is true in life and everything.
Isn't that biblical?
Right. Yeah. Water, most people are more dehydrated than overhydrated, but both can happen and both can kill you, right?
That's right.
Same with, that goes for pretty much everything. But with dietary fiber, most people get too little, but you can get too much. It's possible. And some people...
How do you know when you get too much? You just bloated?
Well, let me just say that when I say increase, so if your goal is 25 to 30... 25
but do people get too much more than
No,
not?
that's most people don't. But unless you have some of these, like some of the tortillas and things or that have added fiber, have a lot of fiber. And sometimes you don't know. And the 2 tips I would have is, 1, do it slowly, increase your fiber slowly. Because how many would you guess most people, if I say 25 to 38 grams is the recommend, what would you say most people in America get?
Me personally, what I've seen, less than 20.
Totally. I mean, the statistics say
I don't see the
14
I was going to say
12,
10 or 14 because I don't. The athletes.
We don't need enough fruits and vegetables.
There's no colors on their plates.
We don't need whole grains, right? We eat more.
The Chick-fil-A number 1 is not color.
Right.
I got a question now. This is a crazy question. I feel like I know you pretty good. I could ask you this question, but I've heard when you have a high metabolic rate, you take more frequent poops.
That certainly, it makes sense because your digestive system is working effectively and efficiently, right? And everybody genetically and otherwise has different, what's regular for them. But it's certainly, if things are working correctly, that goes for your digestive system also.
Yeah.
But so back to do it slowly.
You don't want to stay on the poop one?
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm still talking.
Because well, you talk dietary fiber. You just sparked that for me because that's huge. Because I've had an athlete that plays on Sundays that when he lived with me, it would be 3 or 4 days.
Right.
And he wouldn't have a bowel movement. And I'm like, whoa, what are you eating?
And that's just miserable when you're constipated and then you feel bloated and you don't want to eat more.
Does water help? I hear water helps.
So the 2 tips of increasing fiber is do it slowly, and you have to have water because fiber actually absorbs water in your intestines. So please make sure you increase your water as you increase your fiber, because if you don't, you will be constipated because it's going to absorb in your intestines and get stuck. So a lot of people increase their fiber without increasing water, and they're like, I'm constipated. What the heck? You told me
fiber.
Right. But that's the problem, is you're not drinking enough water to move it through your intestines. So
great point.
So it's super important to make
School's
sure
in, brother. Yeah.
You do those 2 things as you increase your fiber. Do it slowly. Because if you went from 10 grams today to 40 grams tomorrow, you're going to have diarrhea, the opposite, right?
You'd feel like an Oompa Loompa.
Right.
Or just blow it out.
Right.
Okay.
So you want to do it slowly and you want to increase your water. So anyway, that's dietary fiber. But
we could talk for that for an hour.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, sugars.
Okay, so back to sugars. Yeah. Thank you. So
good or bad?
Sugars is just such a hard term to
Fruits
define
have sugar.
Right. And sugar is what gives our cells energy. Glucose is the core unit of sugar, and that gives our cells energy, which is what we need to think, to breathe, to walk, to move, to work out, right? So it's a necessity for life. However, you have natural sugars, like that's what's in fruit and in whole grains. And
breads, cereals,
yes,
right?
Right. We can talk about, we could go into which foods are carbohydrates, because a lot of people aren't really clear about, everyone knows.
I'm on no carbs.
Right.
I just don't know how you produce without carbohydrates.
Well, that's true. But you also think about dairy is carbohydrates, milk and yogurt, and then, of course, fruit, and then everybody knows rice and cereal and grains and pasta and things like that. That's what you think of as carbs.
Are you a fan of pastas?
Sure.
I am.
For energy and carbohydrates, you have to have that. And back to sugar, it breaks down to sugar in our body. So what we have to be careful of is added and refined sugars. That's the key word, is added sugars. And the new food label actually has added sugars on it. But
syrups?
Right, that's added sugar.
Added sugar.
And some people think like
honey
is a better sugar than like table sugar, refined sugar called, sucrose is, domino sugar, whatever, that you add to your sweet tea, right? Well, your body treats it the same. On a cellular level, your body breaks down honey the same way it does refined sugar, or sugar in the raw, that stuff at the grocery store that's kind of like bigger kernels. It's the same thing. Your body treats it the same. It breaks down to
what about
glucose.
this? What about the Splendas and the Sweet and Lows that everybody goes, I'm not doing sugar, but I'm doing those?
So those are artificial sweeteners.
But doesn't that develop cancer and stuff?
Well, no. But some people, if people are anti-artificial sweeteners or those types of sugar substitutes, I'm certainly supportive of that. But from a public health perspective, they serve a very big purpose, because they can allow people, especially with diabetes, their blood sugars not to raise in the same way that as if they had regular sweet tea with sugar, sweet tea with Splenda, or
What would you
sweet and low.
recommend if, people are doing, I have people that drink teas and it's Splendas, coffees, Splendas.
Then listen, there's really, from a public health research perspective, there's not information contrary to that. The stuff that if you like Googled saccharin, which is what's in Sweet and Low, the pink packets, don't even, because you'd think you're in the same room with a pink packet and you're going to have cancer, right? It's just like over the top, like one end of the spectrum. But by the other end of the spectrum, you can't say it is a man-made substance, right? It's not completely natural. But that doesn't mean natural. There's another word that there's no definition of what natural means, like on a label or something. Like, don't let natural fool you, because that could mean lots of things. But the public health research does not show that it is carcinogenic or anything like that. The amounts of that caused cancer in some research years and years ago was like your body weight's worth of, and how much do you have? You have very small amounts when you use it. So back to moderation, if you use in moderation, there should be no problem from public health and research perspective. But, and there's aspartame is what the blue that's in Equal, or the blue packet.
Wow, I forgot about those.
And those, there is a little warning on that there's some people have GI upset if they have too much of that, or some side effects. But guess what? The warning is equivalent to, like, I don't know, 14 or 15 cans of Diet Coke a day. I think everybody would agree that's not moderation, right? So excessive amounts of anything is going to potentially cause problems. But to your question about artificial sweeteners, I think in moderation they can be part of a healthy diet. But if someone wants to stay away from them, I'm 100% in support of that. But those that need to watch their sugar intake, and especially, like I said, diabetes is a great example of that. But then you have like stevia. Have you heard of that? That Truvia is the brand name of that. That's a kind of, back to my natural word, is plant-based. It goes back to like a plant thousands of years ago, and it's been around for a very long time. Even though it just came on the market, it's been in natural food stores for a long time. And some people feel more comfortable with that because it's plant-based as opposed to, I'm sorry, I'm going into way different.
No, because I'm going through my head of like, I could talk to you for like 2 or 3 hours. We're in a course. I even want to talk to you about like, I get clients too. Justin Sims, one of the guys I've had since he was 8th grade, and he's like 42, and he went on plant-based and no meats. And, I want your take on that. I want your take, even with me of today, currently, I'm in a gluten bout, and I don't know what I ate this week, but I know with the athletes in town, we had to get Calhoun's one night, and then even Kava, I had something. And it's
Are you gluten sensitive?
I have more celiac disease. I was
do?
flown to Cleveland Clinic in 2017.
So you're diagnosed celiac?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
So right now, like last night, I got no sleep. Lower abdominal cramping on the side.
And you're just snuck in. You didn't know.
Yeah, you're swollen.
That's another reason it's helpful. You cook for yourself.
Yeah, I got to watch everything. I'm feeling better today, but you get like flu-like symptoms. Your joints get achy. You don't carry the flu, but everything else.
That's
and
good.
all night long I was up. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't get comfortable. What? I'm asking you a professional question. You could charge me later. What can I do to combat that when I'm in the bout? Because he has the little blue pills for me, not the blue pills for men, the blue pills for my stomach. I don't know if that helps when I'm in a bout. I'm not into it. But they help the cramping. And he said when you feel that bout coming, hit it before you get that. But then it zones me out.
Right.
And I'm dehydrated. I'm like,
Right.
And I'm off a little, but I know the yogurt. See, I was diagnosed with diverticulitis or diverticulosis. One you're in about, one you carry. I keep forgetting.
Before you were diagnosed with celiac.
Yeah. And they're prescribing me Hydros and Levaquin. Well, one of my doctors in here was like, for all the jumping and mountain bike you're doing, you got to get off the Levaquin because it weakens the tendons. You could snap knees, ankles, whatever it is. So
that was smart.
I was constantly going in that and still eating pastas, hydros, drinking on hydros, everything to get numb. Okay, like I got to get this pain out of me. Well, not knowing that I was feeding gluten, so I finally had it, and
in your small intestines, that your villi. Do you know the small intestines has these little
pockets and get right?
That's
no seeds, no popcorns.
That's diverticulitis, but your small intestines has these things called villi that are these little finger-like projections that help you to absorb foods in your small intestines. And when you have celiac disease, they get flattened out. So you're not getting absorption. That's what leads to the diarrhea and the cramping and all that.
And the cramping, right?
You're not getting
and
any
you
of
don't you're not hungry because you're in so much pain,
right.
And you always feel like you have to poop, but you can't. You know what I'm saying? So
right.
it's I know this is graphic, but it's part of the digestions, and
deals with.
So all those years I was just feeling gluten in my body, not knowing, and I finally had it.
So now your pasta's gluten free that you.
Yes.
I
I said I can't do this anymore. I can't take any more hydros. I can't drink any more Jack and Cokes. I can't get numb anymore. Something's off.
Oh, I'm so glad that you addressed it.
Yeah, I addressed
it. It is very important. Although I'm so glad that you are aware of that and you are combating that. It's important.
But is that what that is?
People to know
that the fingers, what you're talking about. What makes me so bloated without eating? Well, like you're like this.
Bloating a lot of time. That bloating generally comes a lot of times from the large intestines because that's where the bacteria is that can't digest the food. Like when everybody deals with beans, too many beans. Like some people are lactose intolerant and that happens when they have lactose, but everybody can't have too many beans. Because back to dietary fiber, we don't digest dietary fiber. And that's why it's great because it moves things through our system.
So you're saying beans are good?
Right, yes.
Everybody could eat beans.
Yes, but my point in saying beans...
I feel bloated when I eat beans.
That's what I'm saying is in the large intestines, you can't digest all that fiber. So that's why you feel bloated if you have too many beans. You can take, certain enzymes to help you digest that better. But everybody has a problem if you eat too many beans for the most part. And that's because of your large intestines. So back to your bloat question, a lot of times that bacteria and the gas and everything it's produces in the large intestines. But the celiac starts the problem in the small intestines because you're not absorbing your nutrients because...
What is it doing?
It's just, you mean the
nutrients, like
they're leaving you. They go through your
nothing
intestines.
Flattens out, and I'm hard as a brick.
Right, that leads, I'm sure, to some people have constipation, some people have diarrhea, some people have both. Right, when you have and bloating and cramping, and everybody's dealt with that in some form or fashion, not necessarily related to celiac disease. But I do want to note that as important it is for you to address that, it's important for everybody else listening that most people do not have celiac disease. Although it is certainly important for being diagnosed when you do. An otherwise healthy person does not need to limit their gluten unless they have a sensitivity or.
And you're a fan of gluten.
Yes, because
I miss good pastas and breads.
I don't mean to rub that in your face.
No.
But I just
fine.
want it to be recognized that there's, Hollywood and everything says, get rid of gluten. If you are sensitive to gluten, 100%, you need to avoid it. Or if you have celiac disease, 100%. But if you have otherwise healthy digestive system, gluten is in healthy foods that have lots of vitamins and minerals and nutrients that we need. And there's no reason, if you are otherwise healthy person, you do not need to restrict that in your diet. And you can have a healthy weight and a healthy system. It's not a bad guy if you are otherwise healthy. You, on the other hand, need to restrict that. And I do want to note, with professional, guidance, you can find out about if you are sensitive, because there's a difference between gluten sensitive and actually celiac disease, right? It's like lactose intolerant. A lot of people, that means you can't digest dairy very well, right? And that is purely because I don't want to get too much physiology, but lactase.
I love it.
Lactase is an enzyme that breaks down lactose, which is the sugar that's in milk. Back to the sugar word. And people that have lactose intolerance don't have enough lactase to break down the lactose, and that leads to the bloating and the problems. So it's not an allergy. There's a milk allergy is another issue.
It's about having the inadequacy to break down.
Exactly. And that goes for, I always use the example, I don't mean to get on a lactose intolerant tangent, but when I was in an undergrad, I worked at a frozen yogurt store, and they had frozen yogurt for employees. And I would go. I'm not lactose intolerant, but I would leave my shift like doubled over in pain because I overwhelmed my system with too much lactose. Because I probably had 1,000 calories worth or two of frozen yogurt, and that was too much for my system. And so temporarily, I was suffering from that. And that's true of most people if you overwhelm your system with too much.
Do you think sorry to interrupt, but doctors in the house, I'm going to start calling you more and more about hey, I'm doing this on the toilet right now. Is this okay? Is when I go to Kava, I get the roasted vegetables, the Brussels sprouts, the carrots, and then I get the spinach with it. And then is it too much fiber in one sitting?
No, not if you're, depending on what your body's used to. And again, the hydration, make sure you're getting plenty of water. And then back to,
I think water was a big thing this week. A big thing this week because we had athletes in, agents in, and I haven't had a drink of alcohol in 6 weeks. I think since December 19th. So would we be around that 6-7 weeks? And even 1 or 2 glasses for like the last 3 or 4 days with the agent in, and he's from Canada and likes wine, and you're sitting there, and then I'm making all this food that I'm usually not eating, and I'm picking at that, over picking, you know how we do at the counter, and then in my sleep cycle, you'd be proud of me. I was going to bed for the last 6-7 weeks, same thing, 8:30, 8:45. I'm a huge stress eater, so I was already in bed, but now you're staying up. So Griff and I were talking this morning when he picked me up. I think those 2 things had to have something to do with it, because I backtracked and I'm like, I did not put gluten in my body.
But then some, I'm not pointing the finger at Cabo, but some restaurants, and I'm not saying you had gluten, but sometimes things sneak in that you don't know.
That's true.
And sometimes the people making the food don't know either, right?
That's true.
If there's, salad dressings have gluten, I know you know. And who would think,
who would think
all you
that?
think of gluten is, pasta and bread and, things that have
spices
wheat in them. Right. But there's plenty of crazy things. Once you become aware of gluten, it's eye-opening.
So people shouldn't choose not to eat gluten if they can, right? Because I had a couple athletes live with me years ago that went on.
Certainly not athletes. Absolutely. Because if you know very well, if you have to restrict yourself like that, you would never wish that on someone. You, as an Italian man that loves pasta and food, you would never wish gluten intolerance or celiac disease on someone, because you're restricted. You can't go to any restaurant and have whatever pasta you want, unfortunately.
Right.
Or you can, but you'll be really have side effects of that.
Well, I think that's the reason I don't eat out a lot, because I can't trust even the grills across contamination of switching.
And some people are so sensitive, just back to the lactose thing. Some people can take, a cup of milk before they get affected. Some people can't even take Parmesan cheese. It's like, if there's a spectrum, and with if you're super gluten sensitive, or if you have celiac disease, even just a trace in something that is like barely noticeable, because your body's reaction. And I know I had gluten somewhere. I don't know where it came from, but because of my body's feeling, I know I had it. So that's unfortunate that you have to deal with that. But back to athletes and people that otherwise need that nutrition from other food.
Yeah, because I do make it. I do make. I do 2 pastas usually, one for me and then one for them, because it's like, enjoy it if you can. Correct?
Right. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so what do we do? Back with Diamond Dave, what do we do with the alcohol?
So again, balance, variety, moderation. That depending on what your goals are, if your performance goals are very high alcohols, there's not research that points to benefits necessarily of, that's going to help you run faster or stronger in terms of sports nutrition arguments for the most part. But on a regular day, and someone who's just training regularly to be healthy, it's just something that needs to be in check and in moderation, if at all, because of those reasons. I mean, yes, you see the Mediterranean diet and research about,
what's a
glass
Mediterranean
of wine.
diet?
Mediterranean diet is super based in unsaturated fats and things like a glass of wine a day would be allowed in in a Mediterranean diet. Lots of whole grains and vegetables. Very little meat is in a Mediterranean diet. Fish is encouraged. Like what people in the Mediterranean region kind of sustain on is what it's based on. But in a lot of times, there are some HDL cholesterol benefits potentially from having a glass of wine, again, and in moderation. But I would never tell someone to drink wine for that reason. If they are ready, they might be getting benefit, but the negatives of performance and otherwise in so many
protein
realms.
synthesis breakdown, oxygen inhibitors, your muscular cellular function. That's when I got sick again. I was like, I can't fight it off because everything's broken. Correct?
Right.
With alcohol.
Right. And your body displaces all other processes to
Try to work that out, right?
Yeah, and
metabolize.
detoxify, right?
Yes.
And then everything else that's happening is on pause while you deal with this alcohol. And then
and even the swollenness,
Right.
I feel like
yes.
I've been able to dream and sleep better.
Yes.
I mean, I felt like $1 million the last 6 or 7 weeks. Thanks, Sasha, Canadian agent, for coming in this week and having to get bottles of wine.
But I think that's a great testament to the effects of when. Sometimes it's a difficult time to get off of it because not that you're addicted to it, but you're just used to it. But once you're off and you realize the results of, like you said, sleep, energy,
everything,
mental state.
Yep. I come in with a natural buzz at 6 a.m. compared to like I'm here drinking coffee, but I'm right. cobwebs in your head or whatever. But now you're on a whole different high. It's crazy.
Absolutely.
All right. So body composition. Okay, we got a guy. He's 260, 62 years old. 6'1", 6'2", top heavy. What would you recommend? He eats out 5-6 nights a week, empty nester, intermittent fasting, no. Yeah. I wake up starving. Is that normal?
That's good because that means your, metabolism is working correctly, and yay. And I always say, eating first thing in the morning really is like a jump start to your metabolism. I have a lot of people that don't eat breakfast and they say, they don't eat till like midday, and they're like, well, if I eat breakfast, I'm hungry earlier than I would. But that's the point.
It's a good thing, right?
That's that you're getting your metabolism going, because if you don't start your metabolism until afternoon, you're so sluggish. First of all, you don't have the energy if you're working out in the morning and all that, but your brain, everything is just sluggish until you get that fuel.
I feel the same. I feel in a fog.
Once you get, if it's great if you get in that habit. And for athletes, eating every 2 to 4 hours is paramount. And if you look at a lot of digestive conditions and health conditions, you have honestly the opposite of intermittent fasting. And eating regularly throughout the day keeps your energy level out. It
keeps you regular,
right? keeps your blood sugar, maintained and
at a hormonic level
system,
for fat burning and all that stuff.
Same with like heartburn. We've been talking about that. Like if you ever don't eat for a really long time and you're so hungry and then you eat and then it hurts, that's your body over releasing stomach acid, right?
Yep.
And the heartburn, all that related. So
that's a good one.
Eating regularly can help.
I hear that a lot with people around me,
right.
Of like, oh, I don't eat breakfast and I barely ate lunch, and then they're crushing the heartburn pills.
Right. And then and for your blood sugar, if someone is at risk for diabetes or whatever, it's like blood sugar down here spike up and then crash, right? And so the body fat, the body composition,
I'm Dave Marlowe for 5 minutes. Well, I'm trying to hammer it to them like you got to eat, and I try to tell like even the Griffs of the world, especially the athletes in their 20s, guys like that are so muscular, they're burning like 2,200 calories while they're sleeping if they had to go measure it, and then it's like you need food, it burns calories.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yes. It's like a fire. You have to prime it, or a pump that you have to prime.
Put the logs on the fire
pit. And for it to be a bigger fire, you have to put logs on it. And that's exactly what metabolism is. And, there's
But all my businessmen do not eat breakfast.
It's interesting.
And they go hard in here. And like, well, again, example today, Dave's like, hour, 10 minutes, 967 calories burned, and he might have had a half a banana. And I'm like, okay.
Right. And think about how much.
And then I'm going to go eat Panera Bread as souffle.
Right. And it doesn't have to be, bacon and eggs. Or for some it can be, but it can also be, some type of bar or something that's quick. It doesn't have to. Some people think breakfast. I don't like breakfast foods, or I don't want that much heavy. It doesn't have to be that way. It could even be a little bit from last night's dinner, or a smoothie, or something that has a little bit of protein and carbs in it to jumpstart you. And over time, your workouts, especially if you're in the morning, are going to be better. You're going to have more sustained energy output, and you're going to be able to perform better because of that if you have a little bit of fuel to start that out.
Are you big on like eating, 7 to 7? You've heard that, sunrise to sundown.
Back to the intermittent fasting thing. I'm not really big on time, because it doesn't matter if you are fueling what your body needs and outputting effectively. There's been a lot of studies that have shown the time in the evening. There's nothing, a certain time of day is magical. And back do you remember when Oprah started that big a long time ago, that if you eat after maybe 6 p.m. you're going to gain weight, or 7 p.m. whatever. But if you think about it, most people that are eating after 8 or 9 p.m., a regular lifestyle, is probably fourth dinner or, fourth meal of the day, or foods that you're snacking while you're watching TV. It's not a salad probably that you're having at 10 o'clock at night, right? So for some people, stopping to eat a certain time of day is effective because they're eating foods their body doesn't need and they're extra over their calorie load for the day. But if someone is an athlete, or if they need those extra calories, or if a male specifically is trying to gain weight for, performance means or whatever, you need that. And it's not going to be weight gain, especially like, whey and casein and all of that, having some casein protein that's longer, reaching overnight.
They talk about that. I know I studied something like that on one certifications, but your pedigree's way higher than mine. It's casein at night and then the normal protein powder in the morning, right?
And
casein is
be like,
slower?
Yeah, slower kind of releasing. And if you're trying to... Certainly, if you're trying to maybe gain weight or put on mass, that's a good idea. But even for recovery, like if you are, looking, that's a whole nother long discussion about recovery nutrition, and supplements and things like that to discuss. But I think that back to time of day, it is certainly very individualistic. And if someone's trying to maintain their weight or lose weight, it's not a bad idea to have just a time limit, just to kind of be a monitor for yourself. But if you...
So not to burn fat, don't starve. Don't miss meals to think you're burning fat. And don't... Because he's 260 pounds and he's eating... I mean, I did the calories like 1,500 or 1,800 and I'm like, you're just going to lose muscle.
Right.
And your body fat goes up.
Yes. If you
eat more?
Well, if you cut too much, your body, you've probably heard, is going to go to starvation mode, because if you didn't know this, your metabolism, if you neglect too much, your metabolism slows to protect you, because it thinks, hey, listen, we're going into starvation here and I need to preserve myself because I don't know how long.
Caveman syndrome, they call it.
I don't know how long you're going to not give me food.
Or when I'm going to hunt something down and eat it.
And so when you neglect too much, your metabolism just creeps because it's not sure when the next food's coming. So you have to give adequate amounts to make sure that that's the case.
So have you heard this too? It's so cool you're on here. We could talk like for hours upon hours. I've heard if you want to like drop weight or whatever weight that is, you eat king, queen, pauper. Like your biggest meal for breakfast, your medium meal for lunch. And if you're not active, I guess that's for the sedentary person, not the athletes.
But it also depends when you're working out. Like I think that's probably great. Our mentality is big dinner is what everybody generally does.
And nobody eats, and in Knoxville, it's not breakfast joints. You don't have a lot. People aren't big breakfast eaters. A lot of the places around here try to open up for breakfast, and then even Brown Bag did it, and they eventually closed because nobody's eating breakfast. Why is that?
I don't know, but you're right. It is a good idea to fuel. I mean, if you ideally could do that, it would be great to have. And it makes sense depending on when you're working out.
I look forward to breakfast. I mean, it's. I got a question, and this is about me again, Griff. Shocker. I'm a narcissist. I got pictures of me on the wall. Why can I not get full when I eat?
Well,
it just happened recently, like the last 2 years. I could eat. We made turkey burgers for the athletes. We had 24 turkey burgers, and if nobody was there, I could eat. And I could keep eating. I don't get full. Is that stress? Well,
back to dietary fiber. That could help you feel more full, because you might be, eventually you would reach, I'm sure, a limit. But if you have dietary fiber in your meals, that is going to help you feel fuller. And
so oatmeal's in the morning. I love oatmeal.
Yes, and fruit. We haven't said this yet. Can I say?
Yeah, talk
this
away.
Is a old school recommendation, but I still promote 5 a day for fruits and vegetable intake for most people, because most people are not there. This was the recommendations back probably in the 90s.
5 day of fruits and vegetables?
Yes, so at least 3 vegetables and at least 2 fruits every single day. That's like, if no one remembers anything from this podcast, please make that your goal every day the rest of your life. So when you put your head on the pillow tonight, count back. Did I have at least 3 vegetables and at least 3 fruits? And if that's all you did, that's a great, at least foundation. Because like I said, back to pushing fruits and vegetables, there's so many. The reason I do that is the micronutrients and, vitamins and minerals and dietary fiber and all of the healthful natural benefits that are in fruits and vegetables. If you can at least get 5 a day in, that's a good nutritional check mark to make. And the more is better. That's actually a slogan by a public health campaign, more matters. But so if you can get more, that's great. But if you can at least, and you could have, a big serving of grapefruit could count as 2 vegetables. I mean, excuse me, 2 fruits.
What about an apple? Why does an apple, is it the nectin they talk about? What is it that makes an apple fill up your stomach? And it's only like, 70 calories?
It's the fiber. It's the fiber in the apple. And just like if you think about a whole orange versus a half cup of orange juice, right? I know it's not going to keep you full for a long time, but the whole orange is going to keep you fuller than a swig of juice, right?
With the sugars in it.
Is the fiber. There's no difference because the orange juice has a lot of most of the same vitamins that the orange does, the vitamin C and otherwise the carbohydrates, but the fiber, that pulp that you have to chew and swallow, that takes longer to digest and that keeps you fuller longer. Got it. And helps you go to the bathroom and everything else.
Wow, the fiber is huge. All right, and we can wrap it up. I could go for hours upon hours. I think once I get my kitchen done and I think we're going to get a pool back there. So
nice.
Let's just get a little privacy hut like yours.
That's
I've
fun.
Never been invited up to your place, but that's cool.
Anytime.
It's all right. I get it. Hey, did we answer the body composition? Eat more, do more, high fiber? I would question his fiber. I'd question a lot of people's fiber. I think I got you as a fiber queen now.
Yes, I would love
think
to
about
have
that for the title. Because it's important, because nobody talks about that. You think about everything I listen to, mountain biking, whatever. They're not stuck on a subject of fiber for long. It's always protein, carbs, fats,
And not that those are not important, because they are. We didn't really talk much about protein at all. And protein is super important. Lean protein and the types of protein you have and when you have it, right? We didn't talk about recovery nutrition, how much you need protein after a workout or before and all of that, and how many grams you need. But regardless, just for healthy living.
Do you think people over protein now?
Well, it's a good question. There's a question that if the recommendations are lower than.
But isn't it like 24 grams that your body could only process in a sitting?
Close to that.
Is it something like that?
So you see these 100-gram
right.
bars.
Yeah, and these
protein.
gainer mass drinks. Right. You're just going to poop that out, right?
Your body cannot tolerate that much. But that's, again, eating throughout the day, you space that protein and everything else you need in small amounts throughout the day, and that gives you what you need. You need to eat so many grams of protein within 30 minutes or an hour after you exercise to help, recover in that manner. And your body can't take 100 grams of protein during that time.
Right, and those labels are just to get through it quicker. That's what I always tell the kids, right? You see the recommendations like, really? Like 2 scoops is 40 or 60 grams, right?
Right. And you need an amount, within, if you can, that's why supplements sometimes are good if you can have that right after your workout in a shake or a bar, because you don't have eggs in your pockets, right? That you can have. And then, within an hour or two afterwards, you have your real meal that has more nutrients in it that can. So
I guess what I'm taking, hopefully you guys are proponent of eating throughout the day. Mm-hmm. Would you call that grazing? I mean,
you could. It depends again on your needs. Are we talking about someone who's trying to lose weight, maintain weight, or gain weight? Right. That's important to notice as well.
Well, isn't the optimal, as you have athlete galore in your family, isn't optimal is like body fats, at a low, not to scare female athletes away, but most of the guys, most of our society's obese, even if you don't, hell, I'm obese. You know what I'm saying? I know I don't look it, I get it. But everybody's usually, I'm in a bout right now, so I'm kind of swollen. But usually everybody's obese. And I think the fiber is huge. I would suggest, because I have people take pictures of their, and I just always promote color, and I don't get color back from a lot of the athletes because they're big into the meats. I had 28 chicken breasts. Color is still
very important. Don't stop doing that, because my 5-a-day and fiber are my big soapboxes. But 5-a-day is certainly, color is encouraging that, because like you said, the natural color, not Fruit Loop color, but natural color, right? That it means you're getting fruits and vegetables.
So if I up my fiber in the morning, would I feel fuller through the day?
You should. And as well as certainly getting your, hydration and water and that sort of thing. But like with your oatmeal with some fruit, or, and a little bit of protein too, maybe some peanut butter or something or some seeds or something, or nuts with your oatmeal. But that would help that will keep you fuller longer than you might think, but also give you great energy for working out and thinking and moving. And even if you're not working out in the morning, it's a good idea. So it's interesting to see. Even there's something called the weight loss registry, which has people, if they've lost a significant amount of weight for a significant amount of time, they can enter this. It's out of Duke, I think. And one of their habits that they sustain is eating breakfast for individuals that have sustained healthy weight loss.
Yeah, because isn't that a study? The obese people, like really obese, are not breakfast eaters.
A lot of times, right. And then that goes, again, with this flora in your gut. We haven't talked about that, but that's a whole nother, and having
the probiotics. Are you big on probiotics?
Well,
because I was big on them when I thought I had diverticulitis. I had probiotics, and they're expensive. And then some doctors were like, it's a bunch of malarkey or whatever.
There's mixed research, but I think...
You just said flora, though. That reminded me of that.
There's no question that your microbiome in your gut is a huge...
I mean, how many people eat yogurts? Right. I don't have my athletes eating yogurts.
And same, the natural probiotics like that's in yogurt or kefir.
What about the kefir? Yeah, I do the strawberry banana ones.
You're getting more probiotics in that than you are in a pill. But a pill, the research on
is the kefir good? And because I was doing that for a
yes.
long time, and Activia and all that jazz, right?
There's huge research to support in terms of weight as well as disease risk and immune system, right? Because most of the things that make us sick enter our body through our mouth and our nose, right, and through into our digestive system, right? Like we inhale it, or it's on something we eat or something. And if you have a healthy gut and GI tract, you are weeding that out before it makes you sick otherwise. And so having a healthy flora is so important. And then prebiotics, I don't know if you've heard of that, but
no,
fiber is prebiotics. So probiotics, real fast, are the healthy bacteria in your large intestines.
Right. You're putting that right.
And back to that large intestine.
But don't you need the bad bacteria also? Is not as much?
Well, I mean, all that bacteria is serving a purpose, but if bad bacteria overwhelms, that's going to lead to diarrhea and lots of other problems,
Got
right?
it.
And so
you're putting good bacteria with the probiotics, like the kefir and stuff,
that's exactly right. And the prebiotic, fiber is a prebiotic. Prebiotic, what that means, it feeds that bacteria. And remember I told you we don't digest fiber, but so what the fiber is, it feeds that good bacteria. So it's all interrelated. So another benefit to dietary fiber is that it is oligosaccharides, which is a fancy type of carbohydrate word, things that feed the good bacteria in your large intestines, and that keeps that flora to be a lot healthier. There's been studies, even like between obese and healthy weight individuals, their microbiomes are completely different. And there's some studies that they implanted an obese mouse's microbiome into a healthy weight mouse, and that mouse became obese because of the microbiome being different. So anyway, the studies are really astounding in terms of how much that affects our life and our lifestyle. And if you have digestive problems, as you have experienced, and everybody's had diarrhea or constipation sometimes.
Should I still get back? Because I haven't done it. Should I get back on probiotics like the kefirs and stuff?
I don't think probiotics are a bad idea. I think
add that with my eggs, bacon, oatmeals, whatever. Just a swig.
I think that's a good idea. I think that we have talked about other supplements, but there's some other supplements I think are not a bad idea for a lot of people to consider.
But the 5 rule.
Right.
The
5 a day,
right.
And making certainly food be the foundation of
That's what I like.
Yes.
That's what I like about you. Like supplements probably the last thing I'd talk about compared to all the foods. If, like I said, if somebody's living with me, they could get almost everything. But supplements are the word supplement, correct?
Right. In addition to, if for some reason you cannot get enough iron in your diet and you're anemic, and sometimes people are so anemic that food can't help enough. You have to have a supplement, right? Or if you are lactose intolerant and you're not getting calcium because you might not like dairy. Dairy is an other subject, but...
We got a lot of subjects. This is like school.
But the calcium absorbed from dairy is so bioavailable, which means your body absorbs it very well with vitamin D and otherwise, that it's calcium like in green vegetables is not very bioavailable. You can still get some of it, but it doesn't absorb as well as that in dairy.
I got you.
So anyway, some individuals that are not getting enough calcium through their diet might need to consider that. Vitamin D is the same way. But anyway, back to probiotics, I think I am a big promoter. I think it's a good idea.
Well, we're going to have to walk one day and just talk.
Right.
But I can't keep your pace. Everybody walks faster than me. I'd lug around.
No, you're focused. You got your
I'm trying to,
meditation.
hone my craft and get better and get some knowledge. Man, we got to do a part 2. What do you think? And then she brings I want her to bring the subjects. This was like...
I apologize. I've been all over the place.
No, that's good. You texted me a couple days ago and like, hey, what's the topics? Get ready for it. And I knew and I just texted you body composition because that's the biggest thing that I'm trying to promote with that chart that you see that people don't get. You have to eat more to burn fat. And that everybody's like, I don't understand what you're talking about. And I hope we help today. Lee Murphy,
Fuel
man.
the furnace. That's kind of what
I just say always fire pit, more logs on.
Right.
That's
it's
all.
a great analogy.
Oh, that's what I use when I'm out there.
Right. That's
Drinking
how that fire
Sprites or whatever.
Right.
I can't drink anymore. I can't eat anymore. I can't get full. Yeah, but my metabolic rate is high because I
Great.
poop a lot in the
That's
morning.
great.
Awesome. Yes. Lee Murphy, thank you so
Thank you
much
for
on a
having
Saturday
me.
for coming in. I'd love to do another part 2 and then get your daughter in next month, start training.
Yes.
That'd
she
be
can't wait.
awesome.
She's really excited.
And your energy and positivity, I hope it spreads all over. It's amazing
too.
with all the information, and I hope Diamond Dave got something. Dave, don't eat out. Stop drinking. More sleep. No stress. Thanks, everybody. I appreciate it.